Du stehst neben mir, doch du wendest dich von mir ab. Blicke treffen sich, doch Worte werden nicht gesagt. Es ist noch nicht vorüber, so viele Worte nicht gesagt, so viel noch nicht besprochen, so viele Taten nicht getan. So viele Taten nicht getan. So viele Taten nicht getan. Du liegst da neben mir, doch du drehst dich auch nicht um. Blicke treffen sich, doch die Blicke bleiben stumm. Es ist noch nicht vorüber, so viele Worte nicht gesagt, so viel noch nicht besprochen, so viele Taten nicht getan. 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 Wenn der Sturm verhallt, doch innerlich da kocht die Wut. Alles ist ganz kalt, doch innerlich da kocht die Wut. Es ist noch nicht vorüber, so viele Worte nicht gesagt, so viel noch nicht besprochen, so viele Taten nicht getan. 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 So viele Taten nicht getan.
Hello, my dear friends, Operator Starsky here, and today I'm with two amazing guests. It's Ivan and Claire from Car for Ukraine volunteering initiative. Guys, hello, it's very, very nice to see you here. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Ladies first.
Thank you.
Guys, this is my big honor to have you on this stream because, you know, we are always happy when there's volunteers who don't lose hope, who keep supporting our soldiers. But when those volunteers come from other places. I know that Ivan comes from Ukraine, but Claire, you grew up in Australia, right? And it's
Yeah.
so amazing that people from all around the world, 993 days of Russian invasion, but they still keep supporting Ukrainian defenders because they believe in democracy and freedom and world without Russian terrorism. Guys, can you please tell a couple words about yourself? Let's start with you, Claire.
Okay, I'm Claire from Australia. I'm a retired veterinarian, as in animal doctor, not military vet. And I very early on in the war, I was just so horrified and looked for things to contribute to, and got involved with contributing a bit to United 24. And then heard about CAF Ukraine on a British podcast, the Ukraine the Latest podcast, and thought that was really good. Because I'm very interested in grassroots volunteer organisations. I think if supporting the real on the ground people is the most important thing you can do. I have for 25 years been involved in third world aid through conservation in Indonesia, and in that capacity have got very deeply committed to grassroots organisations to solve the problems of the country. I mean, they can be very small, but they can be very effective in their local area or their local area of expertise. So started to donate a bit to CAF Ukraine, then started to talk to Ivan, who's a very good communicator. He's very easy to get along with. He's very chatty. He's very gregarious. And so I felt as though I was getting to know him. And then this year in March, I turned 70. And for my 70th birthday, my two boys who live in Berlin, I still live in Australia, we wanted to do a trip together. And they offered me a trip to see the gorillas, or a South Sea Island trip, or drive a car to Ukraine. And my immediate reaction was, oh, the family, we're doing things as a family, we really should do one of these other wonderful trips. And I said, I'm just going to have to take a week to think about this. And I came back to them, I said, I think my heart's with Ukraine. And so we organised with Ivan and the buyer for cars in UK, Sergey, to get 3 cars for the 3 of us. So it wasn't like, at first we were going in one car, all so that we could talk a lot. And then we decided to go 3 separate cars and get good radios and talk through the radios. And of course we had every meal together. We slept in this, small apartments at night. So we spent a lot of time together. And we took a week to go across Europe and drive 3 cars into Ukraine and meet Ivan and the team and actually get to Lviv. So after that, I talked to Ivan about getting more into crowdfunding. And so I've been working as a volunteer to support Ivan to bust into some areas where we could do better, more effective crowdfunding. Yeah, so that's my story.
Thank you so much, Claire. Ivan, your turn.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having us here, and thanks to 192 people who are watching us right now, and you stay with us. My story is, I would say, more related to Ukraine, of course, because I'm Ukrainian. I'm originally from Kherson. So in the first days of war, my entire family, they became in the occupation, and most of them were already, in the rear of the enemy. And I was in Kiev first when the rocket started landing, and one rocket was hit above our apartment, and pieces of the rocket hit our apartment. So I felt that the war started, and we were terrified. So we went a little bit west and that's where we ended up in Lviv region. And here, having electricity, having computer, having internet, I started not to take it for granted and try to leverage this access and try to do something. So that's when I started looking for different ways how I can contribute to this war. I'm not a fighter myself. I don't have experience, holding a gun or something. And I realized I want to use my skills to basically. I was doing 3 years in sales in IT, and basically bringing awareness about what's happening in Ukraine, and as it comes now, bringing donations into Ukraine and helping our army is the skill that is also required, and that's where I'm glad that I've managed to find a way to do it, and together with a few friends of mine, we've created the brand Car for Ukraine. It was Ivan Karbashevsky, he's now in Warsaw, and another friend of mine who is from Ukraine and in Ukraine, his name is Alex. Together we made this brand. We joined efforts with a Ukrainian group that started doing it. They had all the operations set up, and very, very soon we will be having significant milestone of 500 vehicles, basically 1,000 days of war, 500 vehicles. That's pretty much the rate the pace we've been doing it, and like every car is about 8,000 euro. So every other day we need to get 8,000 euro worth of cars or around that. And so far we've been able to do that. I don't know for how long we will, but we're committed to be here and to be doing that for as long as it takes. That's pretty much it.
Oh, you're not allowed to say that anymore, Ivan. You've got to come up with a better phrase than that one. You've got to go to the victory or something like that. That's a very off term this week.
That's true. But did you think about it? Like, could you tell back in those days when everything started, when you started this project and when you, Claire, joined, could you tell back then that you will be delivering 5,000 cars to Ukrainian defenders? Like, this number is absolutely insane.
Hell no. It started with a few cars and just with the idea that this is what the guys over there need. And we really celebrated 100, and we were like, geez, it's 100. And just for the audience, we don't have like one major sponsor who throws a bunch of money into us and we just buy packs of cars from the factory and bring them to Ukraine. Every single car has a story. It could be a donated car by Claire from Australia driving it from London to Ukraine. It could be Hector driving a car from South Africa to Lviv, taking him 3 months to do it. It could be something else. And basically for pretty every car of this 500, I know the story. And it's like a human. It's like a kid. So it's really a lot. When I go through like a working table that we have, when we have status of the car, current location, and then when it's deployed, I just go through all of them, and that's a really big table. So yeah, we couldn't, but thanks to Claire, who's massively helping us, we will. I hope we will not reach 1,000 because the war will be over and we'll be in Yalta, sipping a cocktail and enjoying ourselves. But I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon. So we focus on what we can do.
Claire,
Yeah.
how did you? Sorry.
Yeah. My comment was we have to get to the 1,000 in a year and a half.
Absolutely. Looking forward to see that. But what was your decision based on when you decided to join this volunteering initiative, Car for Ukraine? Why did you decide to do that?
I just really believe in Ukraine. I really believe that this whole problem is just totally evil and it's totally wrong. So I have a very strong moral conviction about it. I'm also very entrenched in volunteerism, and so I like to do things. I haven't found anything in my life that, or maybe my own children, but that can is as satisfying as volunteerism, really, for a really good cause. And I just didn't think that it was necessary. And then just through talking to Ivan, it kind of evolved that maybe because I was following quite a lot of the Ukraine war on YouTube, that maybe we could start communicating with some YouTubers who had a lot of followers rather than just individuals who have friends. So I was kind of fundraising in my group of friends in Australia, but that's about 12 to 20 people, not 400,000 people. And so we decided to go down that path, and that was quite daunting, how to break into that. And a lot of people just ignore you, and then there's nice people who respond. But you can send out 100 emails to YouTube people and you'd be lucky to get one response in reality. So it's quite daunting, but it's really only my time, and I'm retired and my kids live away. So I run a farm. I have a business that I still run, but I don't have to be running it all the time. I still have my conservation foundation, but I like to be busy, I guess, and I still have a lot of spare time. So it was really only time for me to get involved with this, is trying to get out communications to people and trying to wake up a response. So it's an interesting process about, because these are people I've followed for nearly 3 years, right? So now I know them. They just don't know me. And they obviously don't know about Car for Ukraine. They don't. That's why we're here, is because even though Car for Ukraine's the group that's doing the car deliveries from inside Ukraine, it's not well known. And I think that's a real shame that even in Ukraine, it's not well known. And so we're hoping you, Starsky, can help us get the word out that actually there's people doing this inside Ukraine. Because to my point of view, the skills should be in Ukraine should be developed further, and the wages should be paid in Ukraine, and to just prepare lots of cars out of Ukraine and then drop them off is not as effective as actually buying the cars, bringing them into Ukraine and developing them in Ukraine, because it develops capacity in Ukraine.
Well, as I said, I'm very pleased to have you on my channel, and I'm sure that our audience of absolutely amazing people from around the world are also very, very happy to see you, and they all want to hear your stories, because this is something very important. Back in the days when I started this channel, after the full-scale Russian invasion, I decided that I need to invite people who support Ukraine, because they don't do that for profit. They do that because they sincerely want to help. And this is something that motivates other people. And we always need motivation. We always need to be motivated every single day, even if we are the people who motivate, but still we need that as well. I wanted to ask you this: how did support change over time? Because when the Russian invasion only began, there were so many people and they were involved and active. How does the picture, what does the picture look today?
Yeah, I think I can take this one. Yeah, the first the first couple of weeks and then months, there was this local group in Ukraine. It's called Banderomobil. That's the name and the brand that is well known internally. The guys had absolutely no problems with money. Like there were just so much money thrown into all the initiatives that help our army. And the problem there was how to spend them efficiently. And simple things like getting money from Ukraine and sending them outside of Ukraine was impossible. It was blocked by the law. Like the government forbid to send money outside of Ukraine just to keep the cash inside. So there were different challenges. And the key thing was we have money, but we need to efficiently spend them. We need to build logistics. We need to know what exactly to buy. We need to identify what what exactly the guys need, what kind of cars. For example, one feedback we had, we need armor on the cars. So we started putting a bunch of armor everywhere we saw in the car, and the car would just die very fast because it's not made for it. So then we're like, okay, where can we keep the armor and where we can remove it? So we started to remove armor from the door next to your butt, because you still have a chair there, right? Like if the bullet goes through, it's not going to hurt you. So then we save a little bit of metal and use it next to your neck. And we also had some other feedbacks. And then we were sort of gradually evolving, trying to get to the point where we spend the money and buy the cars in the most efficient way. And these were the challenges. Now, and back then we had this sort of vision that Ukrainians will run out of money, and we need to start communicating globally. And that's where Car for Ukraine as a brand was created, and we started raising awareness about it to the people. In about 6 months' time, we realized that a lot of people, they are very much eager to help, and they are more eager to buy a car or donate a car rather than send money. To put it in a different way, $4,000 is harder to get than a person donating $4,000 worth of a car, because physically it's harder to steal it. So there's no problem with trust on the entry level. And so far, out of these 500 cars, we had more than half donated by people. It's SUVs, it's pickup trucks, it's different cars that people just, I have a car, I don't want to scrap it, it's too good, I don't want to sell it, I want it to be there for a good cause. And that's what works. This is exactly how Claire joined, and this is how many owners of cars in Britain and in Europe mostly, they come in person, we show them around, we have a nice meal, we show them, we introduce Ukraine to them. And it gives a long-term effect on what good we do for Ukraine is we introduce Ukraine to many foreigners. We don't just say send money, like good, if you can do that, that's fine. But we welcome you. Come see it, see what Ukraine is like. It's not always bombing here in Lviv. It's most of the time it's fine. But after people go to the field of Mars, that's where a lot of soldiers are buried. People are just, they're crying. It's so emotional. And when they see places where those innocent people died, sleep in their houses, when they see shops where we do things with cars, when they come with us to the front line, they become more involved. I even had one producer from California. He was making cartoons for Canadian TV, and he ended up with me in Kostiantynivka. This is like 20 kilometers from Bakhmut. He came with me to Kostiantynivka. Like, we speak in zero in Ukrainian, totally good background, well off. And he meets soldiers, and the soldiers like, so you coming all the way from sunny California to this shit? Like, why would you do that? He was really excited about that. And that's basically a long-term mission that we have in here. Cars, at the end, is just an instrument, but introducing Ukraine, showing Ukraine to people, inviting them here, that's a more long-term thing I'm trying to do. And apparently we're succeeding with it, but we can do more. And that's what we're going to focus on. So that's, I would say, a new challenge. The challenge for the next, year, 2, 3, whatever, is try to get as many people as we can who want to come, and just give them all they need. Prepare documents, solve the logistics issue, create a program for them. Where can they go? What sort of entertainment they can have? It's not really entertainment. It's sort of war tourism or whatever you can call it. And that works. Apparently, that works. People have lifetime friendship, and when they come here and they come back and they talk about that with their friends, and they come back again, and it creates compounding effect.
Last year we've been to
Yeah,
Konstantinivka
pretty much.
with Max. That was my we were two press officers in my brigade, and Max was visiting his brother. We were stationed. Our brigade was stationed not far from then, and back then already it was exactly 1 year ago. Konstantinivka was hit pretty often by drones, by rockets, by artillery. And I was driving the car, and it was like it had manual transmission, manual gearbox. I'm not really acquainted with that, because even my first vehicle that I learned how to drive, it was BTR-3 back in Zolochiv, and it had automatic gearbox even back in the days. And I'm like driving slowly, and the windows are open, and suddenly, and we're like passing by some buildings, and in the private sector, like the smaller houses, in the suburban area. And suddenly something explodes, like, I don't know, probably 50, 70 meters from us. And I keep driving, and the Max is like, like 5 or 10 seconds passed, and he's like, dude, you want to drive faster? I'm like, oh shit, okay. And we went back home to Kramatorsk. But it was insane. Ivan, can you tell our viewers what is the average lifespan of a vehicle, of a truck on the front line?
I can make it very dramatic and nice for people to see, saying it doesn't live more than 3 days. But I don't really know, because the problem with making statistics like this is you really need to have a good, you need to pick good samples, or you need to have a full picture. And the problem with that is, if you send the car to the front line, a lot of car owners ask me, do you know how my car is doing? And I'm like, which one is yours? It's really hard to say what's going on with it, because the soldiers come back to us saying an update only if the car breaks. They're like, what shit you gave us? Like, fix it. And it doesn't happen often, luckily. Or if something extraordinary happens, if they were shelled and they survived, and metal held shrapnel, so they update us about it. So then we know how much time it lasted. But on average, I think it's the soldiers now become smarter in the way they use it. They try to take good care of the cars. They try to install this electronic warfare if necessary. They don't drive all the way to the positions. Maybe they leave the car somewhere safe under the tree, or they try to hide it. So they try to be careful. Those who were either not lucky, or if they didn't really appreciate the stuff, then the car lasts less. And we also had cases when we gave it on Friday, and then next Monday we'll receive the photo that it's destroyed. It's just going upside down. We also saw one of our cars in Moscow in Russian program. It was a propaganda TV show, and they brought a door. It was our car, because we saw our stickers. And that car lasted at least a year. And then when the Russians were pushing in, I think it was also some like Bakhmut area over there, one of the cars was abandoned and sort of half burnt, and they brought a piece of that there. But I also saw some cars the last time I went to the front line. I was there 2 weeks ago. And I saw cars that we gave back in 2022. They still last, and they still drive. So yeah, it's really, really different. If you give an average, maybe 3-6 months, maybe up to a year, and that's normal car things break. The guys drive there sometimes as crazy. The guys load the cars with bunch of stuff, and that kills cars. Yeah, but also we had an interesting case. There was a donated Ford Ranger Raptor, 2022. Like was almost new. The car cost like £50,000 for the owner, and he donated it. I'm like, can I call you? Like, then I call this guy, like, you're donating this car to the army. You understand it, right? It will go to the fight. It will be burned. It will, it will die. He's like, that's exactly what I want. Like, I want to contribute to you guys, to your soldiers. And the fate for that car was that a Russian FPV drone hit that car from the top. But something happened with the drone. It didn't explode as much as it had to. And the guy over there, his call sign is Kamikaze, actually. He survived. And then he renovated the car, and I saw that car. And so it's lasted more than a year now, even surviving the Russian direct hit from FPV drone that we saw on Russian TikTok channel.
Oh my God.
And the car survived. Yeah, we had a post about that on Twitter. If you scroll very, very long, then you'll find it, or on Instagram as well. So yeah, that was quite a story. Yeah.
So, Ivan, can you elaborate that for a bit and talk about the role that the armoring makes, or is that why the cars are surviving for a reasonably long time, or is it just that they're well looked after? Or, I mean, what
Soldiers survive.
role can you
Yeah.
put in armoring?
Yeah, the armoring is important because the car itself, if you look at the car's doors, they are very, like, there's little thin metal on all the cars. They're made so to be lightweight and so the car can go faster and everything. But we install like a solid steel piece, like 8mm, and we install it on the doors. We install it in front of radiator, and then we install it on the back. And basically the soldier is pretty safe. And one of the very vulnerable pieces is the soldier's knees and feet, because it's just like there's no armor, there's nothing. And if there is a grenade or a mine or something else, not huge, but something smaller, explodes next to the car, then pieces of shrapnel are gonna hit you from the side, and you will not walk out from the car. If you survive, you won't be able to walk out because it's very low. It will hit you. It will most likely damage your legs. And that's the thing that happened many times when soldiers were shelled. They send us photos and they're like, we're alive, we walked out. It's quite simple metal, but because it's there, it gives some level of protection. Of course, having solid electronic warfare, expensive things on top of your car might also help from drones, but there are different frequencies and different things that you may still not avoid. It could be a mine flying into you. That thing's not going to help. But when you have metal around you, it's just metal. It's you've been hit with metal. The metal protects metal, like in Jackie Chan cartoons. The magic can fight the magic. That's the way we do.
That is super important because, again, not many people know that generally the metal in cars, it's like a tin foil. And we tried, shooting car using like 9mm, which is a handgun. It goes straight through, like literally. It won't save from anything like 5.45mm, 7.62. But if you have that's the reason, by the way, why some hang like body armor on the door, etc. But generally, yeah, protection is extremely important. Guys, if you are in the shootout, you may hide behind an engine that might kind of save you, but the doors, doesn't work. Claire, one important thing one important important reason why we have those trucks is because those trucks basically save lives. They not only used to deliver munitions and food to the soldiers and necessary stuff, but also to evacuate the wounded guys. How does it make you feel when you know that the cars that you're sending to Ukraine, that they actually save lives?
When I first became involved with the cars, I was actually astounded that these domestic vehicles were used so much in this war. I kind of had the impression that this would be a much more of war of armored vehicles, tanks, things like that. And then when it became apparent that domestic vehicles were so useful, and it took me back to the sort of desert wars and the African wars, and you think, well, they used them because they didn't have the choice of anything else. But apparently in some of those wars, they were offered tanks by foreign aid and or international partners, and they didn't want the tanks. They insisted on just using pickup trucks. And they had fleets and fleets of pickup trucks that could move really fast and dive in and dive out. And so for a while, and then there was the big advance in 2022, and you could see that a lot of pickup trucks were used for that. And when it came to driving our cars from London to Lviv with my boys, my young men, I should say, and we'd become quite committed that we were going in one vehicle so that we could have some really quality time, because we don't get to see each other very much. And then Ivan said, would you like 3 cars? And we had to think about it for a minute and think, do we want to do this? And then, basically we all came to the conclusion at the same time that if that meant 3 people's lives or more were saved, then it was important to do it. Yeah, so it's incredibly important to do that. Yeah, that's the whole thing. And I have a very strong feeling about, there's a lot of discussion about how Russians hit civilians and target civilians. But to my mind, and this may sound incredibly cold-hearted in a way, but I think preserving the fighting force is the most important thing in a situation like this. And that to some degree, I've got to be careful how I say this because some people won't take it very well. But there was a period during World War II when because of the Enigma machine, and the British had broken the code on the Enigma machine, they knew that a town called Coventry was going to be bombed. And the military and the Prime Minister, Churchill, had to choose between save the people of Coventry or save the illusion that they didn't have the Enigma machine. And they thought it was more important to the whole war that the Germans didn't know that they had the Enigma machine. And it was a really hard choice to make, to let people be targeted. And the entire town was bombed, and it was a really shocking thing. But to some degree, I feel as though that's where Ukraine's at too, that you've got lots and lots of civilians, but not so many fighting people, and the fighting force is the paramount, I think. It's an interesting dilemma. But the vehicles seem to be a complete lifeline. When you hear the stories of people who are asking for these vehicles and what they're going through if they don't have a vehicle, the kilometres and kilometres and kilometres that they have to walk, the arduousness of carrying out injured people for 10 kilometres in deep mud, being attacked by drones. It's just an impossible situation. They need these vehicles so terribly, and there doesn't seem to be an alternative to them. There's not enough armoured vehicles to replace them. So they have to be provided, and I think we need to really ramp up how many we're finding and buying. There's always the fear that, Car for Ukraine almost exclusively buys in UK, and that's for various reasons. One is there's a really good buyer in UK. Sergey's a champion bloke who spends all his free time buying cars. And but also because the market's a lot cheaper in Britain than Europe, and that we believe, or Ivan believes, it's because of the right-hand drive in UK cars, so they can't sell into the EU. And I also thought maybe that was something to do with their farming techniques, that British people just like to have a pickup truck rather than a tractor to a large degree. But anyway, we buy almost exclusively in the UK, and there's always this fear that the market might run out of second-hand vehicles. And UK people talk about, oh, if Ukraine takes all our vehicles, then the prices will go up. But I haven't seen. I mean, Ivan could comment more on that, but I haven't noticed since I've known about it that the price has really changed. But it must eventually, because there's an awful lot of people buying utilities in Europe and UK now. But yeah, they're a lifeline.
We
They're
help
essential.
UK to clean their air.
They're what? Sorry?
Yeah, I was just saying, Claire, that we help UK to clean their air. So we take all the diesel cars, and, we help them, take them away so they can buy nice new cars in Britain that have AdBlue, and enjoy great air. In Donbass, they don't really care much about that. They need trucks there.
Don't care about the air. No, that's right. So yeah, so the scheme to scrap high emission cars in Britain is helping, that's for sure, because a lot of people are trying to move their cars on and go for a cleaner car. But yeah, they just seem so vital to this war, these sort of cars. It's incredible. So I was wondering if Ivan would like to introduce the rocket system.
Rocket system.
Yeah, if you go to our website, that's the shortest way, carfurcan.com, and then there is a page campaigns. You will see what are active fundraisers, and on average we have 2, 3, 4 campaigns active, depending on how exactly you want to contribute. Like, for example, there is one campaign for medics. We already delivered 4 out of 5 cars that we committed to a 3rd Assault Brigade, and a channel Sukamaimus and Warthog Defense, they really helped to raise money for that. And now those guys from 3rd Assault Brigade, they have 4 vehicles on the front line. But also we have a few other campaigns, and one of them, as Claire mentioned, is we called it super powered trucks, or it's a rocket launcher truck, or a mini HIMARS. Whatever you call it, it's the same thing. Basically, what the guys have managed to do, they take old Soviet Grad systems from 1970 something, and instead of 40 or 50 of those tubes, they use only 4 or 5 tubes, maybe 8 maximum, and they really take good care about re-engineering the way how they use it. Because back in Soviet, they just needed the purpose for the Grad was not to be precise. The purpose was to cover a square, to cover a certain area, and it could be like one here, another one 200 meters from there, and that was called a good shot. So these guys took the same system, but they re-engineered it. They made it a lot more precise. So 1, it can hit the target, and 2, it can save ammunition. And right now their best results are 10 meters of accuracy, 20 or 40 kilometers distance that they can hit. Those pickup trucks that people donate money for, and we send them to Zaporizhia, one facility that turned them into rocket launchers. And we also committed to help them every month with 2 Toyota Hilux 3-liter diesel. It's a good, powerful, reliable car because they invest also money in it to turn it into rocket launchers. So we want to make sure that the car things will not break, that they will last for as long as Toyota can serve you. We had an invitation to come and shoot, to hit, to push the button. We came, but then there was some like an order from top that today no shooting, because our armies were exchanging soldiers, and they said don't shoot. And we're like, okay, I'm gonna shoot. So yeah, that campaign is active. That's where people can join. But also, if you want to be more sort of saving lives rather than taking Russian lives, which eventually is the same thing, there is a medics campaign for Third Assault Brigade, and last but not least, we also have this, as mentioned earlier, a lot of donated cars, and to make sure that donated car somewhere from York or I know Cornwall is in the front line in Ukraine with armor, serviced, painted, and ready to go. We also require funds, and that's the campaign that's called Power the Frontline campaign. Everyone who contributes will get their name on the cars next month. That's a thing we started doing. I thought it sounds too easy, but actually it worked. A lot of people were like, "Oh, my name is there. I'm gonna show it to my friends." I contributed, like my dollar is there, like my euro is there. So yeah, if you want to put your name there, just make it an not anonymous donation in that campaign. And next month, I will be sending you emails reporting on how those cars get your name on it and where they go to and how they're going to help.
Oh my God, this is so cool. When we talk about like innovations and stuff, I love this thing. Absolutely. 2019, we were deployed to some of the craziest places back then, before the full-scale invasion, to the Svetlodarsk Bulge, like Zaitsevo, like, that area, Zaitsevo, Travnevo, Dolomit. And there was this absolutely amazing inventor who worked with us. He would deliver us some kind of like armored, customized buggies, and things like that. Like they looked as if they come straight from like the depth of like Death Star, like seriously. But the coolest thing I remember was he built this turret that shot multiple RPG-7s. So it was like this big stuff. It was controlled remotely, and there was like, I don't remember, 3 or 4 RPG-7s stuck, one next to each other. And you could literally control it remotely. There was like this long cord, and you would like guide it and then shoot like 4 RPGs at once. That was so cool. Oh my God. What sort of additional equipment, let's first talk about this. How did the demand, the requirements of equipment change over time? Do you help our soldiers with cars, or you also deliver some other equipment that they ask you about?
Besides cars, that's like the cars is just an everyday necessity, like socks and shoes. There's not really a breakthrough in it. It's a thing that we have to do. And that's the first year we were asking soldiers what you need. They said cars. The second year we started what you need. They said drones. The third year you asked them what do you need. They said people. And people is something that is hard just to multiply. So we have to find new technology-driven ways to supply to our people so they can substitute soldiers in certain things. And one of the projects I'm heavily involved in right now, but it's not much public. It's about the FPV drones with a computer vision that can autonomously fly and hit the target. So when the signal is lost, there are a lot of air defense and mostly in the trenches, like trenches air defense on the backpacks. And this is something that a drone can fly and be lost. So me and a few other people and several developers, we're working on a project. We started calling it Sikorsky Engineering, but I'm not sure if we're going to have any problems with the company Sikorsky. For those who don't know, it's the guy who invented helicopter, and Lockheed Martin then bought out Sikorsky Aircraft Company. So we might call it this way, we might call it different. But the key thing here is, doesn't matter how we call it, it's what's important is we need to see what challenges the soldiers have right now. And this was exactly the reason why we came to the front line 2 weeks ago, is we met with some of the most efficient drone units. There was unmanned system unit and 3rd Assault Brigade. We met with the key engineers there. We met with Magyar's birds, Ptachimadara. If anyone knows, there's a Robert, that's his name. He's sort of the leader of a pretty successful organization or unit that is fighting on the front line and uses drones to hit Russian reconnaissance drones and other things. And we were talking to all of them, trying to spot where technology could change the course of the war. Maybe not fully, but little by little, step by step. And the main thing there is the main vision that we have, and this could be the vision for that company that we are creating now, is it's not even the vision, it's a mission. The mission is to get the soldiers who are over there in the trenches as far from the enemy as possible. Just do what you can to take the soldiers as far as possible from the area where the battle is happening. If we achieve that, then we can save more people, and then we can put the technology first. So technology could be sacrificed, and technology could take the first hits. They shared many ideas that sound like futuristic, unrealistic to do. But we look at them and we're like, okay, a lot of things were impossible, but it's a good thing to start with. Put technology there, keep our people, and let the robots fight. I think that's inevitable, at least for Ukraine, because we don't have that many people. We don't have North Koreans coming to us and fighting for us. Russia has many people who are really easy to motivate with money, or just force them if necessary. And North Koreans, same thing. So we have to do different. And I started getting more and more into this technology sector of the war. And geez, there are so many people involved in building technology. Ukraine is one of the Europe's biggest outsource IT country. There are many IT companies that outsource, that build programs for everyday thing you use in Europe, in Berlin. A lot of Audi and BMW navigation system is built in Lviv, a couple blocks from here. And these all people are now in Ukraine. Most of them cannot leave the country because of the law, and they turn into building things for the army, having all that expertise. It's just so powerful. We don't have that much resources as Russia. We don't have maybe that many people, but there's just such a huge concentration and motivation that we will become, I think, a very, very strong defense tech company in the next decade. But first, defeating Russia first.
I agree on that. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know that Ukraine is probably competing with, we compete with India, and also in terms of IT outsource, India and who else?
I think India is probably China. They have their own thing. Because of Chinese, which is a very obvious reason. It's hard for them to, and they don't really need to outsource. They have a huge local market. Indians, they have an option to speak English, to learn English. So and there's a natural way of basically upward upgrading their life status. What's that thing called? Social upgrade.
Social lift.
IT provides that to you. Social lift, right? That's the word. Yeah, and that's what drives a lot of Indians, I think, and us as well. But with Ukraine, we're in a very good place in terms of time zone, so we can communicate with countries like Singapore, Japan, if necessary, but also New York, all the East Coast, and even West Coast if you do the calls in the evening. So that gives us a really, really good position to communicate with the entire world and to provide services to Britain, to Australia, to United States, huge market. And yeah, so all these people I hear, some of them left, but still a lot of people I hear, and they contribute.
Yeah, it's like location is extremely cool in terms of like time zone, but introduces challenges if you're running a YouTube and you want, you know, to make streams convenient for people in like United States and Canada, then like Europe and Australia at the same time. It's impossible, unfortunately. But people, by the way, say that Philippines, by the way, yeah, Philippines, India, and Ukraine, three elephants of modern IT outsource. Guys, a lot of technologies used in your aviation, in the US-built airplanes, passenger airplanes, European-built passenger airplanes, trains, ships, everything. A lot of those were basically developed by Ukrainian developers and smart people, smart IT people in Ukraine, like Ivan here, by the way. Claire, when you had a trip to Ukraine, were your friends worried about you?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yes. I mean, a lot of them said to me, "You promised me you'll stop on the Polish border. You won't go in, will you? You won't go in." And to some friends, you have to tell a porky and say, "No, no, no, we won't do that." But to others, you just say, "Yes, of course. I mean, that's the point of the trip. We're going in." And the family had quite a lot of discussion about should we stay for a couple of nights in Ukraine or should we leave? I think in the end it was my older son Cooper who said, if we get caught up in something, we're just going to take resources, and that's not fair. So in the end, we compromised on spending a whole day there and then coming back at midnight, which was its own challenge because we'd driven all the way there, right? So then we caught an Uber to the border from Lviv. And then we had no car prepared for the Polish side to get back to our hotel, and it was midnight. So that was fairly a kind of awkward moment of, oh, gee, we didn't think this out very well, did we? That our Uber car is going to drop us at the border and we have to walk across. And we had to then go another 20 kilometers to our hotel. But luckily there were some guys lurking about on the border who said they'd call up a Polish car for us. And there was one very close by. And I think probably they get a little kickback from hanging about on the border and calling up this guy if people need a car. But people didn't want us to go in, but I thought it was essential, and took us a minute it didn't take us very long, I must say, but to get used to the idea that Ukrainians don't react to air raid alerts, and they just keep doing what they're doing. And so that was a bit of an eye-opener because it's imperative that you have to download the air alert before you go into Ukraine. It's strongly advised, or it's essential. And so, of course, while we're having dinner, the air raid alert went off, and it was only our phones that were making this noise, and nobody was reacting at all. And so it took us a while to actually figure out what was going on. Why were all our phones going off? And then it dawned on us there was this air raid alert. But nobody went for a bomb shelter or anything. They just kept eating and drinking. But it seemed incredibly natural to just sit there and do nothing. And yet that seemed inherently so wrong. So it was a deeply interesting experience. I think we kicked up a bit of a fuss for a while, but then in the end, people said they didn't know where the bomb shelter was, that there wasn't a bomb shelter. Then somebody said there was a bomb shelter. And by that stage, I think Ivan had figured out that it was a false alarm, this one. But so that was lucky. So we got to live another day. But
What do you
yeah,
think
of course.
about Lviv?
No, what did I think about Lviv? Well, having had no knowledge at all about Ukraine before this war, I didn't realize there were quite so many beautiful cities. I thought it was incredibly historic and beautiful. I expected much more sort of Soviet buildings. I didn't expect there to be so many really old, lovely buildings. I love the amount of cobblestones, which seem much bigger than all the European cities that I'd been to. That the cobblestone area, the old town area, was actually most of Lviv. And I don't know if you've driven in a pickup truck on cobblestones, but it's not a fun experience. Their suspension's not made for it. And so
Yeah,
you carry it most of the time. And I thought it was beautiful, yes. And of course, as Ivan mentioned, the field of Mars just broke us up completely. It was a
yeah.
huge experience.
Ukrainian drivers absolutely love cobblestone in Lviv. We all share this, passion for this feature of this absolutely amazing historical city. um, what and women wearing high heels. I don't know how
Oh,
local women
God,
in
no.
Lviv can even walk there, because Lviv cobblestone is, guys, like, it's beautiful, but it's the cobblestone that you could see, like, same stuff like 500 years ago back then. And back then it wasn't really, convenient. Are, are there any other charity organizations that you cooperate with? I know that you worked with Frontline Kids, Ivan.
Yeah, there are quite a few for different, like covering different logistics steps. For example, there is one that is not really known. They're not public. They're not doing branding. It's called Auto Angels, and they were actually helping us to cross the border. At some point, we didn't have the NGO in Ukraine, and in order to bring a car into Ukraine, you need to become liable for that. You need to fill out the papers that says the car enters for this NGO, not for resale. And then people have to take responsibility for it. And with that, there was an organization that helped us. But then also some dealers, some dealerships who sell cars to guys like Serhiy Pritula, the Pritula, like a famous volunteer in Ukraine. Same dealers, we buy cars from them, but this is not for, like, we have a car for Ukraine things that we show publicly, but there are also some things that we, let's call it, we do it white label. It's because the soldiers are very careful about everything they show, and we just help them using some logistics channels that we have. Also, I met with the guys that are called Jeeps for Peace. They are mostly from Scotland. We also shared some experience in the ways how we can manage things, how we can organize convoys better, etc. And I think the biggest cooperation that we had was this ultra low emission zone. For those who live in London or ever been there, there is an ultra low emission zone in the city center and in the second, third, and fourth zone, if I'm not mistaken, that don't allow diesel cars and some older, like with those that have high emissions, to enter the city without paying the ULEZ fee, which is £12.50. And we cooperated with a few other organizations there: Pickups for Peace, Chips for Peace, British Ukrainian Aid, and several more, to sort of push the government, the London mayor, to not scrap the cars, that people were incentivized to scrap their cars and get some money from the government. And then we created a formula where people could donate their car to Ukraine and still get the sort of the compensation from the government. It took us more than a year. It took us meeting with Klitschko, meeting with Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London's team, and many others. And at the end of the day, British Ukrainian Aid was driving this whole initiative. And I think they got like 600 something vehicles already to Ukraine, just this scrap it scheme alone, within less than a year of time. So that was a power of cooperation. But also here locally, there are many cases where someone can drive a car, and then our volunteer is has ability to pick something up and bring back, or maybe humanitarian aid needs to be brought to the front line. So then we pack our cars with the humanitarian aid and distribute it to the front line. So it's not like we try to stay ourselves. It's always working together, trying to help all each other. And by the way, if I may, I saw that some people made donations. If I can make a shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last one was, I think it was anonymous, but there was a comment, freedom, thanks you all, Slava Ukraini. Anonymous donor donated €1,000. So thank you,
Oh my God.
Anonymous person. Then there was, let me see. Barbara, thank you also for your donation. And Lydia from Canada. Hello, Canada. And then another anonymous one for Power the Frontline campaign, and one more. Yeah. So thank you all, guys. That's massive. And hello to Canada. Hello to all the countries where you're from. The US. I also see one from US. Yeah.
Gosh, you've got a global group, Starsky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Starsky, when we were talking about doing this, we discussed possibly playing the video of the HIMARS trucks.
Unfortunately, my phone is like over there, but we will figure out something. What I wanted to say, guys, big thanks everybody who supports this beautiful cause. And by the way, speaking of Scotland, they also help big time. Not only Scotland, also Ireland. Patrick from Ireland.
McIntyre.
Patrick like everybody knows Patrick. He brings cars from. He's a legend, 100%. He brings cars from Edinburgh to straight to Ukraine. I remember I met them. My God, last year or 2 years ago. They brought cars. Yeah, I think it was exactly 1 year ago. They brought cars to Hostomel in the middle of the night, and luckily our commander also was there, and it was really cool. I took them to Kyiv, and it was for the first time in many years I really had non-alcoholic beer with the guys. I could barely understand what they were saying because Irish English is amazing, seriously. But it was really, really cool.
But Scottish English is worse.
I don't know. They compete. They sound extremely awesome, but I can barely understand. It takes some practice, actually. Back in the days when I was a civilian, I had an Irish boss, and we had this big international community. It was, I believe it was in the World Bank. And there were guys from United States, from Canada, from Ukraine, from Moldova. And our boss was gathering us at the meeting, chatting, telling jokes. He was extremely funny person. He knew a lot of jokes. Unfortunately, we could not understand any of them. And he would tell jokes, laugh at them. And I'm like, and one of my colleagues is like, don't worry, we all speak weird here. It was so cool.
There's a very good skit on that I've seen online of two Irish, I think it's Irish, but it might be Scottish comedians, and they get in a
11.
lift, and the lift is automated to go off their voice, but it just never understands them, and they try to speak proper
11.
English, and they just can't achieve it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite. My God. Claire, is there any special place in Ukraine that you would like to visit one day?
Oh, you're on this tourism thing. I want to go to Crimea.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, Crimea is such a historically significant place. I mean, it's been disputed for centuries, I guess, but it's just got this mystical sort of history, and I'd love to go to Crimea. I think that'd be fascinating. So yeah, that's my aim, but who knows? Anywhere really.
Yeah.
My my main interest at the moment, and I've been talking to Ivan a bit about this and some other donors about this, and so I'm going to put this as a question. So it seems that, particularly with this car industry thing, that everybody's very focused on donating, and I feel as though there's a need to also develop at the same time. And by that I mean this idea that the cars should be should be equipped and armored and increase capacity through rockets and things like that in Ukraine. But at the moment, most of the donations are going to companies and countries outside Ukraine to improve cars and develop them and then send them into Ukraine fully finished. Do you think that there's a need to develop these industries inside Ukraine? Because
I
I feel
think
as though
that
Ukraine's there
uh,
forever with this, and the other countries might not be, as we're suspecting with America.
Personally, I think that it's absolutely necessary. The only question is how can we make sure that those enterprises are protected from Russian strikes? Because that's one of the reasons why, for example, there are several productions that we have. We're talking about ammo production, shells, etc., that are located outside Ukraine, basically like Ukrainian factories, but outside Ukraine, to make sure that Russians won't strike them. Because when Russians learn that we have, for example, shell producing factory in Lviv, it will be attacked by so many drones that no air defense will deal with them. And what Russians do, they send 100 drones expecting that 2 of them will strike the target. That's why even 2 of them carrying 40 kilograms of explosive, if we're talking about Shaheeds, that will be enough to bring a lot of damage. So those are absolutely expected to be built in Ukraine as soon as the war is finished. But nowadays, I have no idea. Personally, like my personal opinion, I would literally go underground. I would build schools. I would build hospitals located literally under the ground to make things like easier and more safe. Not sure why it's not done yet. However, there are cases. I think in Kharkiv they already built an underground school for kids, which can accommodate, I believe, like 500 children. And hopefully in the future we will see more of that. But why not? Like, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But after the war is finished, I absolutely expect all kinds of industries to be built in Ukraine, and they will be built because Ukraine is going to go through enormous renovation or restoration. and there will be big finances invested into this, including the frozen Russian assets. There's approximately 300 billion euro, I believe, as far as I remember. And also there will be a lot of companies coming from all around the world to help to rebuild Ukraine and establish their production in Ukraine. So we will see that 100%.
Yes, I
That's
agree
just
with
my
that.
thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, my
Um,
point is more the military capability that's required now is that a lot of the donor money seems to be going, well, particularly in the car industry, seems to be going to European donors that are sending cars in. And I think with millions of dollars going to charities that are based in Europe, some of that should be coming into Ukraine to improve the development here and the capability
yeah,
here. It just
yeah,
worries me that in democratic countries everything's so unsecure because you can change your government at the next election and the whole focus of your country can change and you might not be so fully supportive, like we've seen with Hungary and things like that. So it just seems to me that it's much more important to develop it within the capability within Ukraine. And certainly in the car thing and with the support from the big YouTubers, there's millions of dollars going to Estonia for them to develop, to buy cars and send them into Ukraine. And there's not millions of dollars coming to an organization like Car for Ukraine. And that kind of disturbs me a little. I feel as though I have this allegory for it that I describe to people where there are two girls. One's plain Jane and one's Raquel, the beautiful European girl. And all the glamour boys want to date Raquel because she's good looking. And one glamour boy goes on a date with Raquel and he has 1 million photographs taken of him. And then all the other glamour boys say, I want what he had. I want to get 1 million photographs taken of me. And this is my allegory for what's happened with YouTube support for NAFO. Now, Ivan and I both love NAFO because they're doing an enormous, huge amount of support for Ukraine, and that's fantastic. But I don't think that sending all the YouTube millions to NAFO is reasonable. And I'd like to see some of that coming into Ukraine
yeah,
to
I agree on
develop the
that.
capability. And I
I
feel as though
absolutely,
that's something that needs to be communicated within the YouTube community by somebody
yeah,
like
yeah.
you.
I agree that we need to invest more into Ukraine-based companies, but again, security. That's the only problem. There are two problems. One problem is that Russians have long-range weapons. If they had no stuff like ballistic missiles and drones, I think we would already have those enterprises and companies built here. In 2022, maybe 2023 max already. But unfortunately, you invest like $50 million into a company for building equipment, and then two Shaheds that cost roughly like $100,000 combined, and you have to invest 50 million more. So that's one problem. And another problem, of course, as you mentioned, the elections, because again, the problem is not really, the people who vote to stop the aid to Ukraine. Generally, democracy is absolutely beautiful. The biggest problem is that Russians invest $2-3 billion every single year in propaganda to convince people that they need to stop the aid to Ukraine. It's not like the people are bad. It's not like, people in a different country, for example. Again, my dear viewers, I'm talking to you right now. It's not like those people are bad because they elect somebody who doesn't want to help Ukraine. The biggest problem is that Russians use information as a weapon against people. Russian terrorists use freedom of speech in order to turn it into a hate speech. And this is the biggest problem that we're facing right now, unfortunately, and on an international scale. By
Which
the
is what
way,
you're working.
yeah, that's something that I'm trying to solve together with a lot of people, by the way, a lot of YouTubers and academics, which I'm so lucky to know. I wanted to ask this, it's a small off topic. What is the most expensive fuel right now in the UK? Is it diesel or gas?
Ooh. Well, in Australia, it's diesel. We have
I think
unlimited.
more expensive diesel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but about 10 or 15 years ago, diesel was a lot cheaper, but now it's diesel in Australia. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah, 2021. Diesel was like all Ukrainians were buying either diesel or this hybrid car that can consume gas and NLG, right?
Electricity. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's my case, by the way. But majority of people were buying diesel cars, and literally 2022, diesel became the most expensive fuel. I remember those queues like in the first months. It was insane.
Yeah.
And
So what
speaking
happened? Why did
of
it change? I don't know.
that's
I don't
literally
follow tech so much.
that's literally demand, because with growing demand the prices grow as well. So if people start buying more stuff according to the laws of economy, you gotta increase prices. That's how it works. But speaking of international audiences, how do you think, Ivan, are Ukrainians? No, I think I would address this question to Claire. Are Ukrainians much more different from, for example, Europeans or Australians or Americans? What do you think?
I expected Ukrainians to be much more Russian before I knew any, because I didn't know any Ukrainian. I've never been to Ukraine, never thought about it at all. And I think you're incredibly European. I think you're much more like Europeans than my perception of Russians. And but I haven't been to Russia, of course. But from what we see, it's very obvious. But you've got incredible English, and I'm sure there's a lot of less global communities, like the extreme rural communities that are very entrenched in their sort of cultural and behavioural and lived isolated lives that are not the same. But as far as the people who I've met, incredibly European, yes, definitely. Do you think so? I mean, you're in Germany now, so do you feel as though you fit in with the Germans?
It's there's two layers in answering this question. Layer number one is like what makes them Germans, and we're talking about their local specifics, traditions, and everything else, which I really had to learn how to integrate, into this community. And generally, before I came here, I considered Germans like extremely boring. Because when you talk about like where do we go in Europe, Germany, meh, because Germany is like its default. Yeah, Germany is Europe by default. Like, what can you find there? But then I started learning about things like, oh my god, like their culture, their tradition, why they smile, why they don't smile, Bratwurst, Currywurst, Knockwurst, and things like that. German beer, and I drink non-alcoholic, German beer is the best, and I compared.
Oh, no,
Sorry, my
wait a
dear.
minute. I won't accept that. The Czech is so much
Now we're
better.
talking.
Czech beer is fabulous. No, German's not as good as Czech.
I can't argue on that. I cannot argue on that. I would
And I'm not a
probably
beer
agree. There,
drinker. I
yeah,
love Czech.
there,
Black Czech beer, I think, is fantastic.
yeah. In Ukraine, we had, I think, what did we have in Ukraine? Kozel?
Walpopopoyski Kozel. I remember that. I remember that advertisement. Yeah, Kozel.
Yeah.
Is that Czech? Is that Czech?
I think so. And GNC says Guinness rules. It does. I don't really like it much, but it does. Like, okay, Guinness is a brand. Okay, let's agree on that. And speaking of food, because this is my channel and we're always, touching this topic. Claire, did you have chance to try Ukrainian cuisine, and what is your favorite dish?
Oh my God, we didn't get much chance, I don't think. We went to a very modern cafeteria for lunch and had some modern, don't even know if it was traditional Ukrainian food. And the very peculiar restaurant that Ivan took us to at night, was that traditional Ukrainian food, that meat restaurant, Ivan?
There is a place
Can he not hear me?
like if you ever been to Lviv, if anyone from the audience, there is a chain of places united by fest or lokal. It's one of the iconic one is Kryivka, that everyone who comes to Lviv has to be there. It's a place where you have to say Slava Ukraini at the entrance, and you'll be checked whether you are Russian or not. Otherwise, you won't be allowed. And before 2022, it was like a theater. Now it's like real. Like if you're Russian, it's not going to be allowed in. They have different theme restaurants in Lviv. I think there are more than 10. And one of those I brought Claire and his two boys to, two sons, is it's called Meat and Justice. That's where they serve a lot of meat, and there is also an I would say a theme, or they're like a chef thing, is where they serve you an exclusive piece of meat that is just there's just I think like a pound of that meat per entire like a cow, right? So entire animal will be only one little piece of that, like for half a kilo, 1 pound. And they serve that to you, but they don't just serve you meat. There is a guy who comes, he's like a torturer or executor with a huge axe and knife. And he starts feeding you with that. But not only he feeds you with that, he also puts like very, very hot sauce. And there's no way you can say no to it. You just eat it. You just consume. And the reason he's doing that is it's a legend, right? He used to be an executor, a torturer, but then industrial revolution came in, the guillotine came in, and then the bullets. They took his job away. There's no creativity now. So he's like, so now I'm dealing with meat. Yeah, but that's,
oh my God,
it's part of the adventure. It's quite. What's that?
Pretty funny. So I don't know whether that was traditional Ukrainian or not. I didn't get the chance to try different. I tell you what, I can watch hours of YouTubes of this. There was a series that came out of soldiers cooking at the front in a great pot, and they cook up these amazing dishes, and they make them look so delicious. I feel as I could watch that for hours. It's just incredible. The other thing I thought that really stuck with me was somebody was interviewing somebody who'd been at the training camp for Ukrainian soldiers in Britain. And in Britain, British food is not known for its fabulous cuisine. And they serve food very dry. So you'll have a cooked meat beside some cooked vegetables, and there's not much sauce. And so the Ukrainian soldiers came over for training, and at the end of a certain period, they were given forms to give feedback about their training, and they said the training was great, the military stuff was great, but the food was really bad. And their main complaint was that there was no soup and that the food wasn't served as a soup. And I love wet food. I love food served in a saucy pot or a curry or something like that. That's my favorite sort of food. But I thought it was really interesting that the Ukrainians obviously have this very strong feeling that food should be served in a wet presentation, and there are the British serving up their roast beef and 3 vegetables. That was pretty funny.
People coming to Ukraine, they have this impression. I noticed that, by the way, that whatever restaurant you go to, there's always like borscht, like pierogi and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in reality, in Ukraine, we have plenty of like Italian stuff, Japanese stuff, sushi, Mediterranean food. Oh my God, kebabs, like you name it. Because like generally Ukrainians eat whatever other people eat, like around Europe, like it's absolutely the same. But Lviv is amazing place because they have all sorts of cool places, like that one that Ivan mentioned. They also have this absolutely amazing restaurant called Zahir Mazoch. I've been there several times. First time, my God, like literally, I went there, I think, with my ex, like many, many years ago. And we're sitting there, we ordered something, they bring some stuff, and then she all of a sudden, and the waitress has like this whip, and she's all of a sudden she says, can you please whip that man, he didn't behave well. I'm like, serious? And she freaking starts doing that, like she literally starts beating me up with the whip. That's when I realized that we won't be together, but Ivan, can you tell me what is your favorite dish? And what would you like to recommend to our viewers if they decide to visit Ukraine?
First of all, if you visit Ukraine, let me know. I'll be happy to see you, meet you, and show you around. I love to eat in general. I love food. There is a phrase, "Біжу, щоб жерти." It's a sort of a hashtag for runners. Like, because you cannot just eat a lot of stuff without consequences. So you need to run first, like a half marathon or 10 kilometers, and then you have an excuse to eat. So I run to eat. I like to eat in general. But yeah, that the Rubizh, it's also one of the places of this chain is where they serve ribs. They don't give you silverware, so you eat with your hands. It's like really good, saucy ribs, a lot of juicy. But other than that, I mean, man, I think Lviv is probably the best place in Ukraine to find different restaurants, cafes, anything, coffee. There's even a legend, we mine coffee in Lviv. There is a coffee mine in Lviv. Just think of it. And when you come there, it feels like we really mine coffee. It's one guest we had from Britain. He came to my favorite coffee place. It's called Credence. It's an ancient Ukrainian word for like a little.
I know that one. That's my favorite in Lviv. Yeah.
The best flat white he ever had, and he bought some beans to get back. And most importantly, that chain of coffee shops, they were massively supporting our project at the beginning. They were making different campaigns and buying bunch of cars, making lots of fundraisers. And I also know the owner now, and they're also brilliant people. So yeah, great food, great drinks. great place. Again, introducing Ukraine, come and visit us. What about you? What about you? What's your favorite thing in Germany? Probably not German food.
Literally, I would go with sushi, but I found incredibly cool like doner plate. This one is now top in my rating. I have no idea why. Maybe it's because of literally the amount of meat they put on a dish. Because
We're talking doner kebab, like
it's
Turkish.
a different. It's a different thing. Doner kebab is usually made out of grinded meat, right? And then they roast the meat, and you have like a kebab. But doner teller is basically a plate with meat. There's this big piece of meat roasting, right? And it's like rotating.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
they take this shaving machine, and they put like this big chunk of like
Shave the meat off it.
proteins. Yeah, I love it. Let's return to not so pleasant topic. What was your biggest impression from 993 already days of war in Ukraine, Claire?
My biggest impression.
Yeah.
My biggest impression. Oh my God, I've been so entrenched in it that it's hard to separate out my biggest impression. I suppose the horror of how incredibly dysfunctional Russian people must be and their community must be. And I've tried to get my head around how could a society get so ugly and so cruel to each other as well as to everybody else. But the stories of the torture of prisoners of war and the sexual mutilation of soldiers and the killing of surrendering soldiers, but the torture, the stealing of children. I think the horrors of the depth of depravity that's exhibited has had a really appalling impact on me. Yeah, no, it's really sunk in very, very deep. I feel as though I must have in some way been open to this in the beginning, but I can't really define that any further. But I mean, most of the people in my society don't take an interest as deeply as I'm doing. So I'm quite alone in my society with this, but it's just hit me so incredibly strongly. And I feel as though, I mean, you start to think, I think it was your interview with Kalen, he was saying that there's no redeeming the Russians at this point, and there might never be. But then I think, well, the Germans went through a period where there were atrocities continuously, and look at them now; they're a terrific society. By and large, I mean, they're fabulous society, very, very modern thinking, very liberal, very welcoming. But I don't know whether the Russians have that in them, whether it's just so entrenched their sense of need to be dominant, because if you're not dominant, you're losing. And it must be such a dog-eat-dog world in Russia that there's no way to just turn them into acceptable people that easily. It's hit me really quite badly, and I'm not quite sure where this goes. I mean, they have to be smacked down. They have to have the biggest smackdown to bring about a massive change so that they stop this sort of behavior to each other as well as to everybody else. But it doesn't seem as though at this stage that's going to happen. But because that would take a really united world to want that to happen, is what I'm saying. I do still think that ultimately Europe will get involved in this war more. I think there's got to be more support from Europe. And but yeah, I guess it's that's hit me the hardest and made me the most convinced. And I don't know, maybe Ukraine's very good at propaganda, and there are some horrors. I'm sure there's some horrors going on to the other in the other direction, but it's certainly not on the same level, or the amount of it. It just couldn't be possible, because I think actually, every Ukrainian that I met has just got none of that in them. And yet you're obviously very feisty people. I try to make sense of these things by looking at the history, but that's been a little bit hard to find for the moment, because I've been very distracted by the here and now and the response for here and now. But Ukrainians were obviously very feisty. They were kind of like the powerhouse of the fighting force of Russia, which is why they're probably Russia's up against it by going against what used to be its strongest force.
Yeah, that's the fact.
Can you
That's the
make any
fact why
sense?
they suck so much. You
Yeah.
see,
Can you make any,
back in the days,
can you make
yes,
any sense of their cruelty, of their level of cruelty? Do you make any sense of it?
this is what they are. This is what they were. Like it's natural behavior for Russians. Unfortunately, there were no cases when they were not atrocious. There were no historical cases of Russians being not atrocious. That's fact. And we are absolutely different from them. Of course, we are different people. We're different nations. We have different views, and we were never invaders. Except for those times when Ukraine was occupied by Russian communists, and of course, Ukraine was the core of the Soviet army, which is, by the way, the reason why NATO was so much, I would not say afraid, but cautious about the Soviet army. It's literally because Ukrainian army was core of this army. And currently, this is what we see: Russians fighting against people that once were their strongest soldiers.
Yeah.
Ukrainians participated in, oh my God, Cuba, Vietnam War, literally. There were Ukrainian, like back in the Soviet times, there were Ukrainian like pilots. Also, there were Ukrainian soldiers who were with the air defense. They were intercepting American pilots. So Ukrainians were involved into all kinds of crazy crap, including Afghan war and things like that. So, for example, during the peacekeeping operation in the countries of former Yugoslavia, in Bosnia, for example, the command knew that you can literally send Ukrainians wherever. There was a case when French, and guys, I love French people, but this is fact from 1992, I believe. There was a checkpoint in some of the Bosnian villages. I don't remember the name already, but why I know it because my father served there and he told me that story. And a French soldier, because it was really cold, French soldier had his like arm, like he had a frostbite. And eventually they had to remove the checkpoint, like remove the personnel because of that shit. And then the command sent Ukrainians because they knew that Ukrainians can withstand like whatever, So we didn't care much. And from that time, Ukrainians were occupying the checkpoint and everything was normal until the end of the war, until UN Pro 4 changed to KFOR. Yeah, but regarding Russian atrociousness, that is literally their national feature, unfortunately. Ivan, how about you? What was your biggest impression over 993 days of Russian war?
I think there were two moments that were the strongest. The first one is because we lived in Kiev when the war started, and we live in the area that is, I would say, not too far from Borispil Airport, and that's the international airport in Kiev. and we heard all of the explosions that happened either in Borispil or around Borispil, and that's pretty far. It's still pretty far. It's 10, 15 kilometers away, and we like a day before, right? We were assembling our IKEA stuff in the apartment, in our newly renovated apartment that we bought in an old Soviet building. We fixed it and we started buying IKEA stuff. And my mom told me, the war might start. Maybe you don't buy that. I'm like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's all right. So I started assembling stuff, and it was 23rd of February, and I actually finished the bed on the 24th of February, 1 a.m. And I have like a Google, hey Google thing in my apartment, and I said, wake me up tomorrow with Ukrainian anthem. It's just coincidence. And I asked, and then on February 24th, 5 a.m., I just hear like it's like a very strong it's a little explosion very far, but then strong vibration that your window is shaking. And when you think of how strong the hit must have been, that you hear that so far away, and you just like before the beginning of the war was like, yeah, I'm gonna fight with a weapon against Russians and everything. But when you're sitting in the capital city and you hear explosions coming onto you with massive, massive rockets, you just feel so helpless, and you just want it to end right now, like right here. And I guess that was the plan of Russians, is try to hit us with as many rockets as possible to have this effect of civilians being devastated, being scared. And this is exactly what happened to me. I never used to that, and I was like, geez, whatever, give them whatever they want, just stop it. Luckily, that wasn't me making decisions about how our army has to deal. And then, day 2, 3, 4, I see that, okay, actually we're fighting back. Like, really? We have army like to fight back? Oh, I'm on it. Like, let's do something. So this was first like a very emotional moment to live through the beginning, and then we started adapting and everything. But then the second thing was actually we lived outside of Lviv for some time for safety reasons, with my newborn kid. But then we thought that we want to be in Lviv, and we started looking for an apartment, and we found one that we really liked. And then in 2 days, Russian Shahed drones or whatever it was hit that. And then those photos of father and his wife and 3 little girls just went through entire internet. And it was in exactly same building that we found the apartment at, on a second floor. And they lived on the 4th and 5th. And I was just like, first, this whole family, it's just, I know people who know them personally, like through one person. And that owner of that Credence cafe also is a close friend of Yarko, Yaroslav, the father. But then this combination that we wanted to be here, to live here, because that's a very peaceful, calm, amazing neighborhood where they live. We just went there a few days ago. And that family, and it all together it's like, oh, there are places in Lviv where different rocket attacks happened and everything, and I'm I understand people died there, something happened, but I'm not personally connected to it, so I could easily come with someone and show them this place. Like Claire, I showed one of the place where the rocket hit. I wasn't really emotionally connected, even though I realized 10 people died in another place. But this one is just so emotional. I don't recommend anyone to go there unless they ask and like, I want to see it. Okay, but I don't really proactively bring people there, because it's just when you dive into that, there's this girl that studied in the Ukrainian Catholic University, super proactive place, a lot of very young, very I would say, very proactive. People who want to make changes, who are not viewers. They are actors. They create this country, and she was one of them. And then another one was already doing something in the Lviv city council, also doing some projects, and then a small kid. And it's just that was super emotional. And it happens, same things just happened last night in where was it, in Kryvyi Rih, or no,
I think in Kryvyi Rih, yeah.
it was in some city also, but closer to the front line. Almost the same thing, right? It's devastating, those things. And yeah, but that was the emotional thing. That I don't think it gives like more energy to do something, but it's just the thing that when it comes to peace talks or anything, it's just hard to accept any sort of peace talks when you see things like that happening. And you need to it needs to end. It needs to end, because I don't want my kids to fight this war in 20 years time. We need to finish it. We need to finish that country. And coming to that, I wonder what's your take on what do you think, how it will all end, the war?
First
Maybe
of
you
all,
had some concepts.
I had an insight from you right now, because generally I never asked what civilian people felt about the beginning of the invasion. I remember myself, I didn't feel anything. I served 10 years, and I've been to Donbass multiple times. And when the full-scale invasion started, I literally took my backpack that I prepared 2 days before, probably. I went to Hostomel, and then we fought with those elite paratroopers and stuff. And we literally had no emotions whatsoever. First thing I did, though, was I recorded an address to the Ukrainian people. Was like 5 a.m. and I posted it on my Facebook saying, guys, don't make traffic jams. Military is working. Everything will be fine. But and we saw those huge queues of people at gas stations or leaving Kyiv. And we were like, meh, like we had no emotions at all. There was a missile strike on our base, huge crater, a civilian building lost like all the windows, a lot of the debris under debris scattered around the street, around the base. You don't see that in like normal life, because we keep the place clean, and then there's like a bunch of rocks and soil around. But we were completely like emotionless, like absolutely, fear was present, of course, but on a level which we were accustomed to. But I never asked like what civilians felt when the missiles started hitting Kyiv, because the shock waves were freaking big. Yeah, like I agree. I woke up because of that, literally. And it was something extraordinary. So thank you so much for sharing your experience, because I literally I never thought about it. In the army there is this thing when you attend so many funerals, so you constantly have to switch off your emotions when talking to relatives or explaining kids how their fathers died, and things like that. You literally have to turn them off, because otherwise like you will not do your job properly. And eventually I learned for a lot of military, a lot of servicemen, unfortunately that switch breaks at some point or stucks in the off position. And it's really to bring it back, to react normally to normal things, like when to laugh or when to cry. This is actually a big problem that I see a lot in my guys. speaking of how do I see the ending of this war, several scenarios. Scenario number one is peace talks, peace negotiations. Like, how can you have a peace talk with somebody who wants to kill you? That is beyond me. And unfortunately, not a lot of people outside Ukraine understand how can you have peaceful negotiations with somebody who literally have intention of physically eliminating you. That is interesting. But in case those negotiations fail, because and they will, because Russia wants whole Ukraine, they want to occupy Ukraine until the Carpathian Mountains. Ryan Macbeth made a good explanation on a strategic level why they want that. And if such dynamic as we see nowadays is preserved, and nowadays Russians are losing 1,500, 1,700 men a day, and they already lost half of that amount of Russian personnel involved in the war, which was 1.5 million. So if such dynamic is preserved, and if Putin will not mobilize like more people, they will keep mobilizing whatever they can, maybe 30, maybe max like 40,000 men monthly. But if there's no like global Russian mobilization, so if we keep running the way we're running now, then Russians may possibly run out of personnel in 2.5 years. That's literally mathematics. They will run out of vehicles much sooner. And of course, because Russia is only supported by terrorist regimes like North Korea and Iran, Cuba, and Syria, while half the world supports Ukraine with vehicles, with equipment, you guys, 5,000 cars, that is insane. I don't know if any Russian so-called volunteer supporting Russian terrorism could ever bring like more than 10 cars. I think that is like impossible. So they will run out of vehicles sooner, and because generally you need vehicles and men, you don't go marching to Ukraine because that will be the happiest day for Ukrainian artillerymen. They will seize the dynamics. We will see the de-escalation. So that is something that I expect might happen in 2.5 years. We will see if this prediction works. Okay, I don't guarantee, but we will see. Another scenario, of course, is that negotiations may work in case something new is introduced either by the United States or Europe, maybe some other country entering the war, helping Ukraine, or at least engaging their air defense on the western border to intercept Russian missiles. We will never see United Nations peacekeepers in Ukraine. It will never happen. Never, as in never, all letters capital, but maybe with the introduction of some new force, things may change. That's why it's a hard topic. 2015, we were in Kurakhove. Back in the days when Kurakhove wasn't shelled at all. Like Mariinka was, Krasnohorivka was, but not Kurakhove. And people were always like, whenever you see during the patrol, whenever you see civilians and they want to talk to you, first question is, when will the war finish? So it's a hard thing to ask. Guys, we are approaching the end of our stream. It will be 2 hours soon. Yeah, and by the way, we also have a bunch of questions from our viewers that I really, really hope we can answer. So Alvin Archer says, Claire does amazing work. Thank you so much. Andrew asks, is Starsky on Blue Sky? I tried and I failed. Shirley says, we will spread the word on all Ukraine YouTube channels about your initiative, which is something absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Just Jimmy asks, do you take any cars or just trucks and 4x4s?
Yeah, there could be cars if they are either in Europe or in the UK, and if they still have life in them. So it's not something that, has 6 months left in it, but something that's worth it. Then yes, sure. Please send us a message, fill out the form. It's car4ukraine/donate-car, or just go to the website. And yeah, we'll get back to you and evaluate whether it's economically efficient. Sure.
And to just extend on that, there's some units that like to be more incognito and they don't want 4x4s. They actually want town cars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that could be as
absolutely.
well the case.
Absolutely, because when Russian drone operator sees like a camouflaged Jeep and Lada, or like some old Jiguli, they will probably attack Jeep rather than Lada. So sometimes those are valuable as well. Taras Kravchuk says, thank you guys, you are doing great job. And Ellie also joins.
Thank
She
you.
says, outstanding work, Ivan and Claire, thank you. Miroslav Burtavi, my bro from the Propaganda Study Institute, says that more than 80% of car-driven technologies based on AI are done by Ukrainian companies. That's something that we talked about. And Nomad23 asks, what vehicles have the best survival rate against FPV drones?
I think armored ones. I think
Armored
the ones that have
ones.
armor in them. Yeah. Yeah.
There was a time,
I would say there is a. Okay, yeah, Claire, go ahead.
there was a time when it was fast ones, I thought, but maybe drones are going faster now. I thought a car could outdrive a drone if it was going at full speed. So fast cars.
We had one case, I think that's true. One guy, when we traveled to the UK for one farmers event in July 2023, one guy donated Audi Q7 2009. Like I just came to his house, I gifted him a T-shirt, and he gave me the keys of his car and the V5 for the document. He's like just traded it for my car, like the T-shirt. And I brought that Q7 to Lviv. We painted it, we prepared it, serviced it, and 2 weeks later, the guy sent us a report. He sent us just a message that he actually managed to drive away from an FPV drone chasing him. Because Audi Q7 is like it's a big family car, but it's still Audi, and it has like a massive engine, and it's pretty fast. He was going more than 150 kilometers off road, and he managed to escape. So yeah, maybe the best car is Audi Q7 and also Porsche Cayenne. We sent two of those to the front line. They both were donated. Pretty good cars. If you got old aging diesel Porsche Cayenne, I'm happy to accept it. But not only Porsche.
Yeah, we have a commentary from. Oh my God, sorry guys, I failed again. Commentary from Noob of the Year. Drones go 80 kilometers per hour. I heard.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
The trouble is the roads are so bad when you're down on the front. But
that's the thing, because from our experience, from the experience of my brigade, for example, the cars that were donated to my brigade, they would live, if they're used at the front, for example, to evacuate guys, they would survive on average like 2 weeks. And it was in Bakhmut, Rubizh, Severodonetsk, in that area. That was literally 2 weeks. Spirne, Yeah, I remember literally I went to our artillery positions in Spirna, and the guys tried to send a truck to pick me up. The next day they failed because they were shelled, and they only picked me up after a day, like the next day. And there was like this absolutely beautiful hole in the windshield. They were like, damn it, we just received this hammer, and now we have to, change the windshield again. So fragments, that is like the biggest problem. But another problem is roads of Donbass. They are like, they don't exist. They looked as if they were bombed. They looked as if they were bombed and shelled years before the full-scale invasion began. That's for sure. I remember them like that my whole life. Okay,
so
I
in
think
that case, it needs to be Toyota Hilux, because that's the car that can't be destroyed, supposedly.
yeah, absolutely. Mario Falmus asks, can I fight if I got gamer skills? If you have gamer skills, I think that any UAV group will gladly accept you, I think. And like basically operating a drone is like you have the gamepad, like the one that you can play, like PlayStation. So it's easy. Guys, is there anything you would like to say to our viewers? Claire, let's start with you.
I'd like just for everybody to think about support the grassroots in Ukraine, and not just the international gifting organizations, to actually try and develop some of this capability within Ukraine, I think is the most important point I'd like to get across. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for having us on and being such a lovely audience to listen to what we had to say. I do have one question. You talked about your coffee culture, but you didn't say where you get your coffee from in Ukraine. Where does coffee come from in Ukraine? I assume it doesn't grow locally.
Oh, it doesn't
We
grow
might.
locally.
Colombian or-
I cannot tell you. I remember that we have things like Jacobs, Nescafe sucks. I prefer Jacobs. My favorite was Ambassador, produced in Germany, by the way, but it was back in the days when I drank instant coffee, because when you're in the army, you have this stuff called time management, when everything should be done yesterday. That's why you don't have time for proper coffee. You can just drop powder, add water. You literally can drop some sugar in your mouth, a spoon of coffee, and then just drink water. This is how it works, to save more
A
time.
little mix inside.
Yeah, but one interesting thing I noticed, for example, when I've been to the United States, is that their coffee surprisingly wasn't that good, like in Ukraine. And I cannot find explanation.
Oh, Americans just don't have good taste buds. They eat hamburgers and drink watery coffee. And they don't know. They don't realize they haven't. And they've actually not great. I know that there's thousands of American tourists and things like that, but by and large, Americans like to stay within America, I think. And they just haven't had that same influence. You would think with so many migrants in America that it would be very international, their foods, but it's not really. So it's hard to know why their coffee's so bad, but it is a worldwide accepted thing that American coffee is terrible.
I noticed one thing that I liked in their Starbucks, because I went to Starbucks to find proper coffee, and one thing I noticed there was like this
Wrong place.
Sandwich. It looked like hamburger. Actually, it was like 2 pieces of bread, fried egg, ham, and I liked it so much. Oh my god, it was so good. Like $2,
Oh, yeah?
I think. Yeah, 2008. It was 2008.
Well, I can remember visiting Americans and they're making a big fuss. We're going to have hamburgers tonight for dinner. And so they were just so excited that they were going to do hamburgers, and they were going to do it on a barbecue outside in the backyard, and it was going to be wonderful. And they had 2 awful pieces of bread with no flavour and a patty of meat, and that's all they had in it. In Australia, we have a complete salad concoction that we put in there, and lots of sauces and really nice quality bread. And yeah, no, it's very strange. Don't know what happened to Americans and food. Sorry, any American listeners, I don't mean it rudely.
Ivan, can you say something to our viewers, please?
Yeah. First of all, the title of this stream, right? 500 trucks for Ukraine. We're gonna have this event next Monday when we're gonna deploy the 500th vehicle with a bunch of other cars. So it will be, in fact, like 504 or something like that. So if you are in Lviv, or if you know some bloggers or media representatives who are in Lviv or in Ukraine in general, please tell them about that. We'll be happy to see them, so we could spread the word and help us help soldiers even on a larger scale. That's one. And a second, just to stay aware of what's happening in Ukraine. Don't forget about the things that are happening here. Stay tuned. Check out the active campaigns on our side, but also just to be aware of what's going on here and help. If you know a soldier who's fighting here, and you see that they report back to you, help them. Or if you have some units you trust, you like, you follow, help them. It's necessarily, and I think if we have first our soldiers fighting, second, if we have their back, both here in Lviv and farther away somewhere in Europe or in the UK, it doesn't matter what sort of proposal America comes with. If people are willing to kick Russians back, and if people are willing to support our country to do that, no peace talks will be doable, because we'll just send them out. It's not peace talks. It's just freezing the war and continue its later talks. We don't want it. We want it to be ended. So yeah, stay aware, spread the word wherever you are, and that's what actually helps.
Good shout. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Claire. Yes, Claire?
Thank you, Starsky.
It's a pleasure. Literally, it's a big honor, actually. It's a big honor to have you here on the stream, and I believe that this stream was absolutely amazing. A lot of really cool questions from the viewers, and I would like to... 5,000 cars, that is such a crazy number that I still cannot comprehend, but it's just so amazing. It shows the level of support, and this is something extremely motivational, which is, again, extremely important to motivate people and stay motivated, because if we are motivated more than terrorists who want to kill us, then we will definitely survive, especially with such a support. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the members. Thanks to everyone who supports my channel, and big thanks to everyone who supports Car for Ukraine. Please check their website. It's in the description. And as always, be safe, guys. Thank you so much. See you later.
See you. Thank you.